we need to talk about being offended and how to deal with our own emotions, anger, whatever you may want to put on that. So the world has plenty of things going on right now that you could be offended about. If you want to be offended in this world, if you want to be upset, if you want something to get under your skin, you don't have to look very far. We've got politics and social issues and pandemic issues and international foreign affair issues, and there's so much going on right now. You can turn the radio on, you can be at a coffee shop, you can just be talking to a good friend, and next thing you know, it's a heated debate. Something's pushing everybody's buttons. We're all on edge, we're all a little tense, and whatever side of the fence you fall on any issue, there seems to be just a very strong, passionate urge for us to always prove that we're right and the other side's wrong. So today, let's talk about being offended and how to dial back that offense, and as Christians to be more understanding, more compassionate, and to listen more before we react. So what things offend you? Now, we only got about 20-30 minutes here, so we probably can't go through the entire list, but there's probably a list of things that offend each of us. Maybe it's a Facebook post. You're talking with a friend or family member and you kind of get sideways on an issue, then lo and behold, later in the day, you're aimlessly scrolling with your mechanical thumb that does this all day, and lo and behold, there's a post they put out there of some saying, some meme, whatever it is, and you're convinced it's directed right at you. Oh, and so what do? You start telling your friends or your other people. You start rounding up people to be on your side of the argument. Did you see what so-and-so said? We were just talking about that this morning. This has to be about me. It may be totally random. It may be something they copied and pasted. They just liked it, but you're convinced it had to do with you. Maybe it's slow service at a restaurant. You're sitting at a restaurant and your Diet Coke's half full and the waitress or waiter has walked by your table 2 or 3 times and your drink's half melted. You can't believe they're refilling it, much less they haven't even taken your order yet. And just slow service just irritates you. You're at the point you're ready to walk out and take your business somewhere else, not realizing that half the people are staying home and not working now, and that poor person waiting on you is also across the other room waiting on somebody else, and that's not even their area, but they're covering because they're short-staffed. They are the few people that did show up and work, and they're flying around like crazy trying to work an overcrowded room, but it has to be you. They have to intentionally be giving you poor service. You become offended as you're sitting in a leather seat in air conditioning, watching a sports game, having a cold drink. You're just offended because you're in such an uncompromising, painful situation. So you're offended. And maybe it's that bad driver as you're in the right-hand lane getting ready to exit to the right that came around you and cut you off and took the same exit you did, and you know they did it on purpose. They saw you, they spotted you from a distance, and they waited till just the right moment to pull the Dukes of Hazzard move, hit that outside lane, and cut you off. They had to be doing it on purpose. Why else would they have done that? So you're offended. You're offended at Facebook. You're offended at service. You're offended at bad drivers, whatever it is. Everybody's got a pet peeve. A pet peeve is something that annoys you, some random act that just, this bothers me. So mine's being late. I always grew up in a world where if you were either on time, which is 5 minutes early, but if you were late, you didn't go. If you pulled in, growing up as a kid, if you pulled in the church parking lot 5 minutes late, you turned around and went home because you were late. You already missed it. You don't walk into a church service 5 minutes late and disrupt the pastor and everybody's head turns to you when the back door opens and you're trying to sneak in the back pew. You were either on time or you did not go. In football, our coaches, when a meeting was happening, if that meeting was at 7 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, they'd lock the doors. and you did not get in that meeting room. If it was 7:01 and you were late getting taped, or you had a class you're sprinting from, whatever happened, if you were late, you were late, and the door got locked and you did not enter that meeting. So not only did you miss the importance of the meeting, you also were getting ready to run a lot of bleachers or laps at the end of practice. Punishment was coming. So being late was always my pet peeve. So what's yours? Everybody's got different things. My other little pet peeve is blinkers. Nothing irritates me more than being behind a car and all of a sudden that car's gotten real close because it's slowed down, and then it makes a quick right-hand turn into the parking lot, but they didn't use their turn signal. And you're yelling at them, or I am. That's what that stick is on the column. You tell somebody you're turning right. And the worst thing than not using your blinker, especially people pulling trailers, that's the worst in the world. If you did not check your blinker before you hooked your trailer up, I can't see your tail lights, and all of a sudden you've got a vehicle and a 10-foot trailer and they're making a right-hand turn into the Chick-fil-A drive-thru that's already backed up down the street, so they can only make half the turn, and you never saw them. So I'm getting annoyed, right? I'm offended. Or you're trying to exit a parking lot and you're waiting for a car, you're going to cross traffic, you go, okay, as soon as this car passes, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. Why is it going so slow? And all of a sudden it turns right in front of you. And you're like, seriously? All you had to do was turn your blinker on and I knew you weren't going past me. I could have already been on my way. You just cost me 10 seconds of my life sitting in a leather bucket seat with the air conditioner, listening to good music, and I am totally offended because you have totally put me in a bad position in life, and my entire day is ruined. The rest of the day, I'm mad. So what's your pet peeve? Trivial matters. They end up dictating our entire day. A bad morning can throw you off the rest of the day. Somebody irritated you on the way to work. You got a bad phone call, whatever it may be. So why do these things set us as Christians off so much that they can throw our entire day and off? Two things. One, we think we are better. We think we're better than that person. Well, I always use my blinkers. I've never made that sudden right-hand turn, especially as my GPS and I don't know where a store is and I'm looking for a sign. I'm going down Memorial and it's packed, and all of a sudden I go, oh, there it is. And I make that quick turn. I've never done that, right? I'm better than that. I know exactly where I'm going at all times. I would always use my blinker at the appropriate quarter mile from my turn to signal to the world that I'm turning in the next 5 minutes. Of course, then you may get mad at the person driving down the highway and their blinker's always on, and you never know when they're turning, right? So we're always offended at something. We think we're better, we're above them. We wouldn't make the same mistake. Or the second thing is, we assume that person is intentionally trying to offend us. Somehow, even though you have no idea who that stranger is, they must know what gets under your skin. So they're going to do something to intentionally offend us. And as Christians, we have to step back and realize we're called to a higher standard of behavior. In Romans 3:23, it says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." You know, we talked about perfection a couple of weeks ago. Unless your name is Jesus, you're not perfect. You've probably made some mistakes. In Romans, Paul writes, we've all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Now, when you read that statement, it's a little depressing. It says we've all messed up and we all fall short. That's not real exciting, is it? Kind of like, great. But you have to continue to read. If you read the next verse, it also says we are all freed by His grace. So the good news is, even though, we all fall short, we all are freed by the grace of Jesus Christ. We're all redeemed through what He did on the cross for us. So if you don't want to go through the day being offended and letting everybody upset you and get underneath your skin and let your little pet peeves throw your day off, what are some things we can do? Well, let's go through 3 things here. First, give people the benefit of the doubt. Now, giving people the benefit of the doubt was a pretty common phrase. You heard people even say it out loud. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on this one. You don't hear it as often anymore. We don't give the benefit of the doubt. We want to assume whatever was said, done, was intentional, strategically well plotted out, just to throw you off, just to get back at you, just to make a point that you don't agree with. Well, if you want to assume something, how about we assume someone did not mean to offend you? What if we made that assumption? We know what assume means. We know what happens when we break the word assume down. So why don't we assume that the other person did not mean to offend you? In fact, they probably weren't even thinking about you. Maybe you're in a group setting. Maybe I'm in a group setting and maybe my birthday's coming up and somebody says, I saw this really pretty orange shirt and I'm going to buy you an orange shirt. And I'm like, I don't want an orange shirt. Well, 4 seats down, there's an OSU fan wearing an orange shirt and he thinks, oh, yeah, that guy's a Tulsa guy. He doesn't like OSU. He doesn't like me. He said that directed towards me because I'm wearing an orange shirt. So he intentionally doesn't want an orange shirt. Well, maybe I don't want to look like a pumpkin or a deer hunter, sitting where I'm at. But somebody else at the table or in that small group gathering will assume I intentionally did it a dig. Somehow I was digging at them. I was trying to make a subtle little point. Well, let's assume people don't try to offend us. Let's don't judge that act. What you also may not know in life, giving people the benefit of the doubt, is you don't know what stressful situation or what somebody else may be going through in their private life. That driver that sped by you and cut you off in traffic and you're furious at, how could they do that? Maybe they work at a place and you get 3 warnings before you're fired. They've been warned twice by their boss, don't you be late to work again. And they had a flat tire that morning or a dead battery or a sick child, and they are flying to the office to save their job. They are the only income in their household. Things are tough, and they're just trying to get to work to save their job. But we assume they're just crazy drivers and they're rude. We don't know what situation other people are in. That waitress or waiter that may be a little short and not as chatty with you, you're trying to talk it up to them and they're just kind of like taking your order and hustling and bustling, may have left a sick child at home that morning by themselves, but they had to go to work to pay the bills. And they've got an illness and a sick child and they're dealing with a lot of things. You don't know these things, but you're going to assume their behavior is directed towards you. We don't know what people are going through in life. Yesterday on the news, there was a car pulled over in front of the Bass Pro Shop out in Broken Arrow. It was driving erratically on the road. And people were calling the cops saying there's this bad driver driving erratically. This person's an idiot. You got to go get him off the road. The cops responded. They pulled the person over to find out they had been shot multiple times. Now, a lot of times when I see a bad driver weaving, I think a lot of things, but I don't think how many bullets did they just take. But this person had been shot multiple times and was trying to get themselves to a hospital. But we may assume that that person is just a bad driver driving erratically at 7 o'clock in the morning in rush hour traffic, and they're just throwing our day off. We don't always know what situations other people are going through. We've all offended someone when that was not our intent. Something was going on in our personal life, something else was, our mind was somewhere else, and we offended somebody by our actions with no intent whatsoever and no preconceived notion of doing such. So first and foremost, let's give people the benefit of the doubt. Next time you feel offended or you feel like someone's pushing your button and you're ready to jump and respond, just take a deep breath and pause and give somebody the benefit of the doubt that they did not intend to offend us. In Proverbs 19:11, it says, "A person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense." Wisdom yields patience. The older we get, the more experience, the more wisdom we get from God's word should yield patience. We should slow down and be a little more patient with our fellow person. And the Bible even said it's to our glory to overlook those offenses. So first, give the benefit of the doubt. Second thing, let's lighten up. Just take a deep breath and lighten up. Just take that 5 seconds to breathe deeply. When did we as a society become so thin-skinned? We're so defensive right now. Everybody's on edge. Everybody's got an agenda, right? If you're a head football coach or a CEO or a politician, you have to be thick-skinned, because with those roles and those challenging jobs comes criticism. Somebody's always going to second-guess your decision-making. Well, you're sitting in the stands, you're screaming, that crazy coach. Everybody knew you were going to run it on second and third. Why didn't you play action pass? I would have played action pass. What are you thinking? Of course, you only say that after the play, right? If they'd play action pass and was incomplete, you'd have been, why weren't you running the ball up the middle? What's wrong with you? We've all become thin-skinned and we want to react to things. It's interesting to note, if you read the Bible and look at all the times Jesus interacted with sinners and people in trouble and people, he was never shocked or surprised. He was never offended. He never said, are you kidding me? You did what? I can't believe you did that. Nothing surprised him. He engaged. He was always willing to listen and talk to that person. We always become offended when we believe the other person had us in mind. You see, we all make mistakes, and we don't think about the flip side of that and put ourselves in somebody else's shoe. If you think the person's always thinking about you, you should probably be paying them rent for being in their head all the time. If you're occupying that much of their space, you probably owe them some rent. But the problem is, that's arrogance on our part. It's a little arrogance when we think we're the center of the universe and everything revolves around us. Now, this is probably offending you right now, because you're probably thinking, well, I am the center of the universe. It's pretty important. It is all about me. We need to just kind of lighten up and breathe and give each other a little bit of a pass, especially with all the stress and chaos in the world. Let's try to be a little more kind and understanding. If you feel an offense, we need to let go of that fast, slow down, pray, be slow to respond. The Bible says be quick to listen, slow to respond. Sometimes we get that reversed. When somebody starts telling us something, we are already pre-programming our response in our mind and not even listening to the rest of the facts or details. We're already ready to respond. Jesus always slowed down and listened. He engaged. He asked questions about the other people. The best leaders in this world, the best business leaders, the most successful people, if you hear others talk about them, the people that impress you the most, they always say, they ask questions about me. They wanted to know about my family, how I was doing. They engaged me. They were interested. They didn't talk about themselves. They were engaging. So let's lighten up a little bit with our fellow person. In Romans 12:16, it says, live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Let us not be conceited. Now let's take that in context. Live in harmony. Do not be proud. Don't be willing to associate people of low position. Now, Paul's writing this, you have to take it into context. The Roman Empire was in power at this time and controlled the world. And the Roman Empire was very hierarchy organized, very elitist and extreme social statuses. You did not associate with certain people. You know, there was a Caesar, there was a Senate, there was politicians, there was the social elite. You know, and based on where you were confined. That was the group you hung out with. You were not to be caught with people of a lower social status. So what Paul was writing in the Church of Rome was, don't fall in the trap of the people ruling. Don't be like them. Don't put yourself in those categories as Christian. Look at the example even Jesus set. He was always being criticized by Pharisees and Sadducees for eating or dining or being at someone's house that person's not worthy to be with you. Why are you hanging out with that person? That person's a tax collector. That person's a prostitute. That person is a sinner. What are you doing? Well, he knew that was the kingdom. Those were the people that needed him the most. And I like, if you continue to read on into Romans, it says, do not repay evil with evil. Because oftentimes we're offended, we immediately go to payback. I'm going to get my revenge. That person hurt me, they offended me, I'm going to get them back. And Paul's encouraging us here, don't be conceited, don't be too proud, and if you continue to read on, don't repay evil with evil. So let's lighten up. Give people benefit of the doubt, lighten up. Third, talk yourself off the ledge before you push that send button, before you hit the reply button. You send a text to somebody, and some phones you see those little bubbles, right? And you know something's coming back your direction. And you're already getting ready for your reply, and the bubbles haven't even stopped. And what's worse than that? The bubbles go away and you just got ghosted. Now you're really ticked off, because now you're assuming what they were going to say to you. So we get into this attack mode and our judgment becomes impaired. So let's talk ourselves back off the ledge. Ask yourself first, why does this even offend me? Why does it offend me that someone didn't really use their blinker? I have no idea why that offends me so much. Maybe their blinker doesn't work and they just turned into the auto parts store. No excuses, right? And will it really matter next week? Will my life really be changed or altered by these little offenses? So let's slow down the big picture. Remember, no one can make you feel offended. Your feelings are your own choice. People always say, they made me mad. They made me angry. They made me feel bad or not appreciative. No one makes you feel anything. People do things. How you respond is your choice. Your feelings are your own feelings. No one can hurt your feelings. No one can make you mad, angry, sad. You have to choose to take that input and convert it into an emotion. So you control your emotions. As Christians, we are to be self-controlling. Let's think about the other person and their position first. We can't dictate people's actions, but we can control how we respond, and we should respond with love. As Christ did, let's lead with love. When they brought the adulteress to Jesus to stone her because she committed a sin, and they told Jesus, this is the law. She was caught in adultery. The law says she must be stoned to death. And they were ready to go. And they're trying to trap him into taking some position against the law because he had always led with love, and they knew that's probably not where he was going to lean towards. So they tried to trap him, and he wrote in the sand. He was probably listing down all those offenses and sins of those people, and one by one, starting with the oldest, who probably had sinned the most because they had lived the longest, they peeled away. And when Jesus asked the adulteress, where are your accusers? Does no one accuse you? And she said, no. He said, neither do I. Go and sin no more. He engaged her. He knew what she was going through. And he forgave her and encouraged her to go and change. In Ephesians 5:1-2, it says, follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. So we're being encouraged to follow God's example. Let's lead with love. Before we become so easily offended and so easily angered, let's give people benefit of a doubt. Let's lighten up a little bit. And when we get there, let's talk ourselves back off that ledge before we react. Pick your battles wisely. Stand up and defend your Christian principles in all you do. As a Christian, there are things, we have principles that when those principles are challenged, we do have to dig our heels in and stand up for what we believe in. But we can do it with love, we can do it with kindness, and we can do it with compassion. We sit around dinner table or at a restaurant waiting for someone to say something, we convince ourselves, that was meant for me. They were talking about how they raised their kids and they must not like the way I raised my kids. That comment was meant for me. We're convinced whatever is said, they like Fords, I like Chevys. They know that. They're down there talking about how the Ford's the best truck ever made. They know I'm a Chevy owner. We're convinced whatever they're talking about is directed toward us. So whatever it is, whether it's that post, whether it's that comment, let's all take a pause and a deep breath and let's really work to trust in God this week. Remember, there's purpose in chaos. God's got control of this world. All the things going on politically and across this world, we just wonder. John 14:1 says, don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God and trust in me. That's what Jesus is saying. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Don't be offended. Don't get worked up. Things are going to work out. The head coach is not trying to call the wrong play on purpose to offend you. The waitress is not ignoring you on purpose to offend you. A person in traffic's probably got 10 things going on in their life. You have no idea what's going on. They're not trying to offend you. They may even be shot, apparently. We don't know what's going on. So let's don't be quick to judge. Let's give people benefit of the doubt. Let's lighten up, world. Let's talk ourselves back off the ledge and let's lead by examples. Because as Christians, we're to be Christ-like. Jesus always led with love. And let's be an example to the world. Let's be less offended and let's be more like Jesus. Thank you. Hope you have a great week. We look forward to seeing you again next week.